Imagine for a moment, you go to see a movie and it is the first movie you've ever seen. And your friends, or some people that you know, maybe they're acquaintances, maybe they're friends, they're moviegoers, and they have said, hey, come watch this movie with us. And so you say, okay, I'll go and watch the movie. And you go and watch the movie. And let's say the genre of the movie was fantasy. All the classic, knights in shining armor and horses and castles and swords and all the rest of that. And you go and watch the movie. Remember, it's your first movie. Maybe you start off with something like Lord of the Rings, which is arguably the best trilogy that's ever been made in cinema history. And I would say it is. And let's say after that, they come at you and you start watching Pirates of the Caribbean. Then after that, you start watching Chronicles of Narnia. And you're enjoying yourself, kinda, mostly, sorta. And you're like, oh, I think I like this. And so, the next time your friends come and they say, hey, come watch this other movie. And you're like, okay. And so there's a recurring theme here because, again, it's a fantasy movie. Basically, whatever they say, you do. You just go along with them. Now, you hear of other movies and other types of movies, but, well, everybody else is going to see fantasy movies. So if I want to go see a movie, I have to go see a fantasy movie because that's where all of my friends are going. And even though maybe some of these other movies may interest me, but my friends never go there. So I never go. So because of this self-limiting approach to movies, you miss out on some great cinema history that's made in other types of movies, like Aliens, and specifically the first two movies of that franchise. Or there's a little small one that you may have heard of called Star Wars. Yeah, you miss out on that too. And you also miss out on some great adventure franchises like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or you miss out on some great action type films, spy, super spy, assassin stuff like the Bourne trilogy or John Wick. Or just like maybe even some post-apocalyptic stuff like Mad Max. And at the end of all of that, you miss out on all of the stuff that's come out from the MCU, even though they haven't made anything good like for years. But when they first came out, they made some great quality stuff. Well, because of the self-limiting approach that you have to movie going, you miss all of that. You miss every bit of it because you've decided that you're just going to go to see fantasy because, well, everybody's going to see fantasy. That's sad. But there's something even sadder about that. What's even sadder is that as you go to these movies, you actually believe you have made the decision. And on a very low level, you maybe possibly have, but on the macro scale, all you've done is followed your programming. Now, you may have heard me mention that in other videos. And what do I mean by programming? Well, it's simply this. You simply followed what some outside force has told you to do. So you haven't done any informed due diligence or looked inside as far as your own interests and do some reflection in terms of the type of movies that you want to go see. No, it is because everybody else is doing that, so you do it. everybody else in your small group is doing it, so you do it. And that is basically how you approach your movie going. But that is not making a decision. That's just following your programming, following the group. Now, granted, yes, we get recommendations from people that we know, and we give weight to those recommendations depending on the source. The source is pretty important, because when the source is weak, then the recommendation doesn't mean a whole lot if we're actually thinking about it. But we do that. I will give you that. But it is only part of our decision-making process if we are actually making a decision. Again, that is part of informed due diligence and personal interest and doing some reflection about those very things before we jump in. But most people don't do that. They don't do that at all. And that's what's sad. And they don't do that in life. But on the micro scale, most people do the exact same thing when it comes to tabletop RPGs. Many people approach tabletop RPGs just like the analogy I've given you with movies. They think that there's only one game in town, which is normally the game I refuse to mention by name on this channel. So much so that I've had people use the name of that game like it's synonymous as a term with tabletop RPG. And I'm like, wait a minute, that is not tabletop RPG, it's just a type of tabletop RPG. But that's what happens when you program. You will overreach because you haven't done any due diligence. And you think that you're doing something that's right when actually it's not. And this is sad. But there is good news. The truth, thank the Lord in heaven, is that there are scores of different types of tabletop RPGs out there. And you do not have to limit yourself just because that's what everybody else is doing. Popular doesn't mean best. Good googly moogly. Popular doesn't even mean good. It just means popular. When it comes to tabletop RPGs, having options is a good thing. Shoot, in life, having options is a good thing. These options come in the form of indie tabletop RPG publishers. Now, indie, how I define it, are those small teams or even single individuals. So there's no corporate machine behind them who have just gone out, put a game out, whether it be from their own money or they just put it out on Kickstarter or something. They do some crowdfunding or whatever. And they go out there and they make a game because they have a love for tabletop RPGs. They go through the hard work, they have some good ideas, and they have a supportive community that they don't hate. Let me repeat that last part because that's the kind of indie company I'm talking about. These indie companies have a supportive community that they don't hate. Now, I emphasize that line because that automatically disqualifies a whole lot of tabletop RPG independent companies out there. It's normally based on some kind of political divide or some kind of ideological divide, and they just hate their potential customers based on that. And they try to push that stuff inside of their games. Instead of just making a game and allowing the people who are going to play the game to create whatever they want to create, they try to preach at you in their games. This is what I'm talking about when they talk down to you and try to denigrate you. And they really personally try to do that online in like Discord or forums or the place where it is the absolute worst. That's just a cesspool of what's online, Reddit. It's all over when it comes to that stuff. It's sad that that's the case, that they can't just make a game and let the chips fall where they may. Just make a good game, man. And people they're grown. They will make a decision on the kind of worlds and things they want to include in the game. They'll make a decision about that. Don't patronize them and talk down to them like they're 5-year-olds. That is insulting. But there are companies who have jumped on that bandwagon. And because of that, they will never see the light of day on this channel. That's why maybe some of the games that you are playing aren't showing up here. Could be because I do my informed due diligence, and also things that sound interesting or things that I think would sound interesting for you guys, and also going in line with the theme of RPG Elite, which is non-fantasy alternative genre tabletop RPGs. That's what we cover here. But companies who are like that, I won't give the time of day. And here's the good news. You don't need them. You don't need any of them. You do not need to spend a dime on any of their material. And why would you want to spend money on a game where the company potentially hates its customers that you are actually a part of? These companies who say stupid things like, oh, people like me, white men, can't leave the hobby fast enough. Or, well, we don't need more white men making tabletop RPG content. Or the line of other ridiculous nonsense that has come out over the last 10 years, 15 years or so. It is redunculous. And you keep giving your money to that, you are part of the problem. Because you keep giving them money so they can continue to do that very same thing. I just want you to know there are alternatives and you don't need them. Let me give you three alternatives right here that I recommend. So the first one is sci-fi Stars Without Numbers. This kind of gives you a classic Traveler vibe, but it's a little bit more advanced than that, and it's put together really well. I'm doing kind of like a solo thing right now where I'm testing it and I am enjoying it, and I dig it. I still want to get further into it, but so far I've enjoyed myself. No agenda here except to make a good tabletop RPG. Then you have the solopreneur project of FRAGGED to Empire. He's the only one that I've actually had any contact with. He's the one that sent me the game, and I went ahead and took a look at it, and it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic, he actually describes it as a post-apocalyptic game, going into the new age, and we're kind of getting to some of the sci-fi stuff too, as he's going to the stars type of deal. But that's what that is. And no kind of ideological, political agenda. I'm just trying to make a game that you guys can have fun in with a whole bunch of different cool sci-fi, post-apocalyptic type stuff. Kudos. And then there's stuff like, I've just started doing a series on this with Sentinel Comics at Greater Than Games. Greater Than Games have put this out, and it's a superhero tabletop RPG. And when you're looking at the rules, you don't feel like you're being preached to or anything like that. They're just laying it out. This is that, and this is all the rest of that. At least I haven't gone through, I haven't seen the whole thing, but so far, so good. So I'm like, okay, cool. But these are just 3 games. 3. I gave you 3. There are scores of them where you don't have to be talked down to and denigrated because maybe you have a different political ideology or ideology in general from those people. Why is that even coming into the picture? Why is that a thing? I thought I was just playing a game. That's the way it's supposed to be. And you do not need them. Those other people who actually do that stuff, you don't need those companies. Stop spending your money on them and start supporting the ones who really love tabletop RPGs and the customers that support them. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that you're gonna have to do some informed due diligence. You're gonna have to figure out what your personal interests are, and you're gonna have to do some self-reflection. And you have to break out of the mold of just doing one thing. You have plenty of options. You do not have the excuse of back in the day when you couldn't find anybody. Oh, you don't have that anymore. We've got solo systems and you can just play it solo. Have yourself a ton of fun. Or you could go virtual and find people who would be interested in playing that game. You do not have to settle, is what I'm saying, which is one of the unspoken mantras of an RPG elite. We don't settle. We like what we like, and we're gonna play what we wanna play. And if others don't like that, that's fine. I'll just go out and find other people, like-minded people who wanna play it. I'm not obligated to do it, and I don't care how long that I've known you. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean that I have anything against you either. I just want other experiences. And you can do both. Who said you couldn't do both? Who said you couldn't play with your regular group and at the same time have another group that you play with? So it's just to say you do have options, you know, and everybody's life situation is going to be a little different, right? It's going to be where, you know, maybe you only have the one group, right? Oh man, but could you have a better experience is what I'm saying. I'm not saying stop being friends with them. I'm saying maybe every other week, instead of being there, be like, I'm going to play with another group this other week, you know, change things up. So just so you can have different experiences with different games and things like that. And maybe that's the only day that you're able to play, then just tell them, say, okay, things have changed. My interests have changed. I want to kind of spread out. You can do that and they should understand. If they don't understand, then that's another story. That's another story because that is indicative and is a sign of something else. I'm not going to get into that right now. Hey, if you got any value out of this video today, then if you could do me a solid and just crush the like button. Also, if you want to stick around, I come out with videos every Tuesday and Friday, God willing. And if you want to see those and are interested and haven't run for the hills because I've said something that have offended you in this video, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. I got the question of the vid for you, and it is a simple one. Didn't take me but a second to come up with it. So simple. What indie tabletop RPG publishers do you know of who don't hate their customers that you would recommend? Isn't that simple? You just knew that was coming, right? Now, I've gotten suggestions from you guys before in the comments, be like, hey, have you looked at this game? I'm like, no, I haven't looked at that game. Didn't even know that game existed. Let me check it out. And I have gotten some of those games and plan on covering them on the channel. I don't know when, but you guys, your comments, I look at them. I go and look at stuff that you guys recommend, but I have to, again, do my informed due diligence, and I also have to make sure that's in line with the channel and my interests also, because I'm not gonna do something that I'm not interested in. That whole nine, you know, and do some reflection on it as well. So again, what tabletop RPG publishers do you recommend that just want to make tabletop RPGs and don't hate their customers? Let me know. Get some engagement going down in the comments below. This will be one of those things that'll be just good for everybody. So everybody chime in on this, because you might find something in the comments that you're like, wait a minute, I've never heard of this. Let me go check it out. Of course, I've got links in the description below of the games that I've told you about, and then you can just go and kind of go back and forth through the comments and then start looking for those. All right. That's it for me, folks. That means I've got to do my snaggle puss.
So exit, stage left.
Hey y'all, you got a game this week. Happy gaming. I pray it is an RPG Elite session. Until next time, again, God willing, your boy has got to sign off and say, peace 5,000. I'm out.